Today is May 22nd, 2020, and here with us is Alex Noida, who is a sociology student at Rice University. And thank you so much for your time, Noida, Alex.
Thank you.
So to start, can you tell us about a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so I am a sociology major here at Rice. I just transferred, so that kind of makes me or not just transferred, I just finished my first year. So that makes me kind of in between a junior and a senior. On top of that, I am also pursuing a sociology honors thesis, looking specifically at hoping to investigate the sociology of genetic engineering technologies.
That's great. So yeah, since I guess February or March, we have moved all the classes online at Rice University. How has it impacted your studies and your life?
I think because I had prior experience doing online classes from the community college that I transferred from, it wasn't too bad. I think the challenge came from the complexity of the situation regarding taking remote classes. I actually had a family member, my brother, had tested positive for coronavirus, and having to readjust to online classes, find a routine, and then also worry about my brother and my family back home and making sure that they were okay was definitely difficult and made, I think, the late half of March and the early half of April really difficult in terms of taking the classes online.
I see. So your family members, they're not here in the US?
No, my family, I'm from Houston and they live in the suburbs. So they're about 30 miles north of Houston. And I see them about every weekend, but because of the virus, I couldn't see them for about a month. And they were also really nervous. And I really wish I could have been there to support them, but they told me to just focus on school. Kind of just stay down there because I live in an apartment downtown near Rice still, and just focus on doing okay in school. We'll be fine. You don't have to worry about us. But how can I do that? It's literally my family. So.
Wow, it must be a really difficult time for you, and I'm glad your families are okay now.
Yeah, thankfully. I think the hardest part was my brother actually had contracted the virus when he had come back from a conference that his company had made him go to. And he had to self-quarantine for about 14 days. And during that time, because he lived with my parents still, I was really nervous as to whether or not they would be susceptible to contracting the virus. I mean, they still had to feed him. They still had to, provide him the things that he couldn't access outside of the room. And on top of that, my parents had pre-existing medical conditions that would have made their recovery and also time, I guess, ill much more difficult than my brother, who is 25 and really healthy. His case was very mild, thankfully. He actually had given it to his girlfriend as well. And she's diabetic, so she kind of lost her sense of taste and smell. But that was the greatest extent to which my family had been affected by it. Thankfully, no one had to go to the hospital. Nobody had to be put on a ventilator. Nobody had to, have any conditions that would have created like excess stress.
So how have you felt about the relationships in your family has changed during the crisis?
I think in some ways, I feel like we have kind of strengthened. I mean, they are pretty much the only people that I get to see outside of my apartment because I live with my sister. So I get to go and see them, but they are pretty much cooped up in their house. And so they're really excited to see me too. But I think the fact that, we can't really go anywhere and there's external pressures and a lot of miscommunication by governmental and public entities. It makes kind of like I want to say a difficult situation. And I think adds a lot of stress to our social, well, not a lot of stress, but underlying stress to our situation, because, we all just want to be able to get out of the house. And so I think in some ways that has made or caused a little bit of intensity. But other than that, I think the virus has, or the novel coronavirus has given us the opportunity to kind of take a few steps back and just kind of be unified together during these really difficult things.
Yeah, definitely. So what has been on your mind most during the quarantine?
During the quarantine, I think a lot of people are seeing this time as a time where we're required to be productive all the time, especially as a sociologist, especially as capitalistic market values are something that really guides our society. I think people feel obligated to feel productive, even though they don't necessarily have to, and they are not expected to, especially with the distress, confusion, and ever-changing situation that is present. I think that for me, I've been really trying to focus on just making sure that I'm okay and doing the things that I need to do. Not trying to focus so much on, oh, I need to develop a new skill and a new hobby, and I need to make sure that I have a really great routine and that I'm sleeping on time, and learn how to cook and all those things. Those things will come later, but I think the most important part is like taking care of myself and making sure that I have the baseline, like emotional support that I need. And yeah, I have had a lot of friends that have said that they feel really guilty for not being able to do work, and that they feel really unproductive and unmotivated. But I try to remind them and myself that during this time, nobody is really expecting anything of them but to, make it through and persevere. Because it is scary, especially for, I feel like, younger people who have never really experienced anything like this. And I guess generations that have never experienced something like this, because the, pandemic hasn't happened in like tens of years. So for myself personally, just making sure that my mental health was where it had to be was the most important part during all of this. And also making sure that my family's okay, of course.
Mm-hmm.
So
during the pandemic, I guess most of our communication has been moved online. So what is your prospects about how technology can change our lives?
Yeah, well, interesting that you say that, because I am like trying to focus on science and technology studies. I think that technology is like really great. I think that Zoom is really great, although it has like security issues that Rice has thankfully like tried to account for. I undoubtedly believe that it has made some communications harder. It has made learning harder, especially for students who don't have access to technologies. It really makes these inequities in education and accessibility to technology really prevalent. And while it is great to be able to have the opportunity to continue learning remotely, there are students that they don't have the luxury of being able to sit in a quiet place and be able to use a computer with reliable internet. For me, I think that for me, and I feel like a lot of my peers at Rice, we do have the luxury of being able to have at least a dedicated space and access to some sort of technology to do that. But I think that the main kicker with remote learning and technologies is that it's not accessible to everybody. And this format doesn't work with everybody, even though that's what we have to do. I think that in that regard, I feel like companies, schools should really be more flexible and try to meet students halfway. I know that there are a few school districts in my area specifically, or in the Harris County area, that have tried to like ameliorate some of those inequities by providing technologies to students that need it. And those efforts are really great, but I think that there's a lot that needs to be done, and a lot of people that have voices that should speak on account for those students that can't.
Mhm. Yeah, as you touched briefly, how do you see this pandemic has revealed about the society's equality or inequality?
Yeah, I think on top of the like educational disparities, the technological inequities, I think that this also negatively harms um, people of low socioeconomic status, of lower classes, and marginalized communities like POC communities. Um, I'm sure that you're familiar with the people that were trying to stockpile on toilet paper and hand sanitizer, and that made everything less accessible to those people that needed it, like senior communities who don't have the mobility or the access to be able to go to the supermarket. I think that the privilege of some people have really shown, and because of that, a lot of our communities have suffered. I work at HEB, and when all of this happened, I was trying to really enforce the product limits. So we had limits on like chicken, meat, canned soup, rice, toilet paper. We were out of toilet paper for like 2 weeks.
Wow.
But during those times, I had a lot of people, like younger people, people with no visible problems with accessibility. I don't want to insinuate that I know everything about their situation, but there are people who definitely could have at least bought their portion for the day and then came back later instead of trying to buy. I think our limit was like 8 cans of soup, and people were trying to buy like 20 plus cans of soup. And there are people that actually need that, and people who can't slip out during the day because they're taking care of their kids, or they're still doing their job, or they have to work these essential careers because that's the only way for them to procure money, especially unemployed communities. They need to be able to have access to these like really cheap cans of soup. And I think if people are hoarding them and they have the privilege to be able to do that, I think that it doesn't really take into account the fact that there are other people who are facing marginalization and inequities, that those people are not doing their part. So yeah.
Yeah, I totally understand. And with the Zoom being the online classes now, like how effective do you think it is?
How effective do I think it is?
Yeah.
I think in some ways, I think if the professor is just lecturing and that it's like a lecture style hall, then I think that should be fine. Although I think it does somewhat deter questions. I think in the large like physics 102 hall, students wouldn't really be raising their hands asking questions anyway, so whatever. But in the smaller classes and the small group discussions, I think that it has kind of been a hindrance in some ways because students can't or don't really feel like they have the setting to be able to either speak up because there's something in the background and they have to keep their microphone off, or they just I don't know, feel like they're under more scrutiny. I personally thought that I was okay. I tried to ask as many questions because I think I don't feel embarrassed about asking questions. I feel okay. But I think that in terms of discussions, I think that especially when students are trying to or like come in at the same time and they're like, oh no, you can go. I think that in and of itself kind of deters students from wanting to speak up in the first place. But I think lecture styles has been okay. And I think, I don't know, I wish there was a way for discussions to be better, but I mean, that's the nature of the technology or any like video conferencing at all. I actually was on a transfer panel for the admissions office at Rice for last week. I think.
Yeah.
And we did the webinar style where students could submit Q&A, and that was really good. We were able to see those questions and stuff like that. But I wonder for especially professors, and how President Lebron has said that they expect classes to be able to be performed both online and in person, how professors and faculty will be able to adjust to using the Zoom technologies, because I have definitely had some times where I couldn't hear my professor, or I couldn't see my professor, or my professor like had a different room open and he couldn't get it. So I don't know. I think that there's like a learning curve, and I think that most people have gotten there. So
Yeah. Have you had any like fun stories you would like to share like, during having classes at Zoom?
I think one of my friends, he was taking a class and the professor couldn't get a video started. And so he just kind of left the class and everybody there, and he was trying to get back in, but he couldn't get back in. And so I think their class had to end. Other than that, I haven't had any, I guess, funny or like crazy experiences. Everything I think has been pretty normal. I think everybody kind of jumping in at the same time and trying to speak, and the other person being like, you go, and the other person being like, no, you can go, is funny in and of itself. But yeah.
Yeah, definitely something we
Oh,
never.
actually, I just remembered. I was taking this history of modern science class with Professor Zamito, and there was this student who was trying to make his online learning more fun. And so every single day he would change his virtual background, and he would also have an outfit. So he dressed up like the Back to the Future movie. He dressed up like like an astronaut one day, and like a college frat boy the other day. And it was really entertaining. I was looking forward to like every class to seeing like what he would dress up as. I don't know if my professor realized that he was doing that, but it was really funny nonetheless.
That's cool. Yeah, it's definitely stirred a lot of creativity during this difficult time with trying to find ways to have fun.
Yeah.
And how have you yourself engaged in any type of like help to the rest of the society during the pandemic? If
Yeah. I let's see. During this time, I have, aside from working at HEB, because that was one of the stores that was really doing a lot for the community during the time. When the rodeo just got canceled, HEB was so crazy, and the customers were really nasty. Some of them were xenophobic, and that was kind of messed up. But aside from doing that, I have been like making masks. I've made over like 50 in my spare time, and I've just been making them for like close family and friends. I don't have like the access, nor is there access to like elastic and a bunch of fabric. I went to Joann's and they made me wait in line. And then I only had 15 minutes to shop once I got in the store, and I couldn't even look at the fabric. But I've been making masks, and I think especially as people are, you know, trying to make it the new normal, at least like a cloth mask will provide them like more of a sense of security, I feel. Being able to see something that's, I wish, oh, I have one right here. Being able to see something that's like other than a surgical mask and makes you feel like a little less, I guess,
stressed.
less unnormative, I suppose. Like trying to make it something like really personalized and something that's less out of the operating room, something that can be integrated into daily lives. And I think that that is really important. So I actually have like my sewing machine right here.
Oh, oh wow.
Yeah. So I've been sewing. There's actually no elastic anywhere, so I have to use scrunchies to make like the loops, because they have the elastic on the inside, so I have to cut them up. There's no elastic anywhere. And on top of that, let's see, what else have I been doing? I am going to be interning with the Rice Emerging Scholars Program, and I'm hoping that through my internship, I'm able to because it's going to be during the summer. It's about to start next week or the week after. But I'm hoping that those students, because it works with low income and first gen students, will feel empowered by the resources and the instruction, mentorship that we're providing to them. I'm hoping that that will be like a guiding light and a highlight for their time during the coronavirus, because a lot of students that I've personally interacted with that have come from the REST program already think that it is such like a transformative program, and it really helps them feel like really connected to the college's culture and to their cohort just in general. I think that might be a little bit difficult because community is so hard to forge online, especially if you've never met each other. You don't really get the intimacy or the physical connection, emotional connection that you would if you were able to like spend more time and at least sit next to someone else. But I'm hoping that will help them. Let's see, what else have I been doing? I've been wearing my own mask everywhere. I've been trying to do takeout when I need to, go to the grocery store once a week, do my due diligence. Texas has reopened early. I think as of today, they're like letting the like bowling alleys, skating rinks, restaurants operate at 50%. And while that's like really great, I think that I'm still not going to participate. I think that it's my civic responsibility to, slow the spread, flatten the curve. And so I am hoping to, remain strong during these times and resist the urge to go eat out, because if it's not necessary and it's not over yet, then there's no point in doing that. It's unfortunate for small businesses though, because there's like one that's very close to Rice's campus, Dak and Bop, the Korean fried chicken place, that has to close because they can't afford, or I don't know what the reason is, but it's because of the coronavirus, probably, with their funds or something like that. That would benefit from being able to have, in-house dining, or to be able to open their doors. And, that's really important. Those are people's jobs, and I get that. I wish that there is a way for people to stay safe and to also have those stores reopen. But I think the reality of it is that people are not understanding their civic responsibilities. There's like a video uploaded online about the Galleria Mall, and there are a bunch of people not wearing masks, not social distancing. And I think that it's fine if you want to go out and you want to go to these places, but the responsibility and expectation, and just I feel like a level of decency and kindness would to be protect others by protecting yourself. And I think that a lot of people aren't doing that, but I'm trying to do my part. So wear a mask everywhere I go, don't go out that much. So
that's great to hear, and thank you for all your efforts. I'm sure, you have helped so many people to get groceries, and we really appreciate that. And also on the other side, you spoke of some of the xenophobic customers and any other behaviors that you experienced that might be targeted towards Asian Americans. Can you talk a bit more about that?
Yeah, I think once this had all broken ground, I think, late March, and I was planning on going to the rodeo. I was working, and the customers were really nasty. I don't want to attribute that to like xenophobia, because I think that everybody was just generally stressed at that time, although I'm not a punching bag, so I think that it was unwarranted, but whatever. Mm-hmm. I would see some people like walk by my line, look at me, and then walk off. I don't know if it's because they wanted to get another item, or it's because I look like this because I'm like one of the only Asian people that works in my store. But I have seen like the videos online, I've seen the articles, and if anything, like it makes me kind of like nervous to be able to go back to work. I mean, only work on Sundays, but
Yeah.
that has definitely been like a deterrence and something in the back of my mind when I consider like increasing my availability and also just like being able to go outside. It's unfortunate that like this pandemic is being like associated with like racial undertones because I mean, I don't think that those people deserve that. Those people have been here as long as those people, like Asian people, yeah, I mean, they've just been here minding people's business. And I think that it's really disheartening and scary to see the fact that people think that it's okay um, to lash out at Asian people, even if they are feared or stressed. Um, Even calling the virus the Chinese virus, you know, has racial undertones, has like kind of xenophobic undertones, because it's didn't come from Chinese people. It came from a region in China, but like the sole proprietor is not, you know, the Chinese culture. So, but I don't know. I feel like being able to go out in public as like a non-marginalized like demographic is really a luxury. Um, I think that I like feel scared from. I feel like if I were an Asian man, like a taller Asian man, I think I'd be like less scared. But the fact that I have like the intersectional identity of, you know, a woman, an like an Asian woman, like it makes it kind of yeah difficult and scary, especially because those people like Asian women have been the target of those unsolicited attacks and you know xenophobic actions. So I haven't necessarily experienced it myself, although I feel like if someone were to come up to me and try to do that, I would fight back most likely. I don't think I would just take it, even if it meant that my life was on the line. I, you know, would fight for myself until the end. But it is definitely something that crosses my mind, especially every single time, you know, I have to be working and I have to be, you know, in really public spaces because people, yeah, can sometimes be nasty, and experiences, circumstances like these can draw like really nasty and perverse things.
Yeah. You sounded like a badass, which is great. I was wondering, you also spoke about your anxiety and how you focus on your mental health. Can you share with us some of the stories on that?
Yeah, actually, when I first came to Rice, it was a really difficult transition for me. I don't mind, like, you know, being vulnerable and open about that because I think that there is like a stigma surrounding mental illness. Sometimes at Rice campus, like, there's nothing that really goes under the surface. Or, yeah, there's nothing that really goes under the surface, but I will be completely candid in saying that, yeah, it was really difficult. A great time for my anxiety and my stress. And so just recovering from that and, you know, feeling a little bit better, feeling a little bit anxious about my future at Rice. I was going into the second semester really hopeful. And then this happened halfway through. I think that the academic success that I was experiencing allowed me to, you know, persevere with my schoolwork. But there were times where I would, like think about my family and what we are going through, thinking about like all of the hurt in the world, all of the confusion, and I would just like be paralyzed and stunned. Sometimes like not leaving my bed, sometimes not going to Zoom classes, because it was really difficult to cope with. These are like uncertain times. Everything is ever changing and it is stressful. So I had to really focus on the fact that that was the reality, that there was nothing. I feel like my anxiety stems a lot from uncertainty. And so the fact that there were no guarantees at the end of this, and there were no guarantees that my parents were going to come out safe. While my brother had the coronavirus, there were no guarantees that my brother was going to come out safe, or any of, my other like friends and family were not going to contract the virus, all of those things. The fact that there would be a chance that my parents would, die if they were going to contract the virus, if they were going to get sick. All of those were thoughts that were circulating in my head that I couldn't really shake off because of, my anxiety. And I had to resume my therapy with my therapist at the Rice Wellbeing Center. And that was really helpful. I think something that got me through it, and something that allowed me to get out of the rut that I was in. Although, sometimes, people just have their days, was focusing on the things that can be certain in the moment. So if I knew that that day my parents were safe, that my brother was safe, that the classes were going to be okay, that my close family and friends were okay, then I should just let myself not ruminate, not spiral, and just focus on the fact that everything is okay today and take it day by day. It was really difficult trying to reach out to people. I had only been working for, I think, a week or two, again at work, because I go on leave when I go to school. So I'd come back because I just needed the extra money. And I was trying to confide in some of my, my coworkers about everything that was going on. It was kind of the norm at work to be cussed out by people, to be berated by people, for people to be yelling at you, for people to be belligerent because you weren't giving them the items that they needed, that because they felt like they had some sort of privilege or entitlement to being able to break the rules that were put in place and enforced for community welfare. But I think during one of those days that I was working, I had told one of them that because I had just gotten a call, I just gotten a text from my brother. It was a picture of his test results, and it said that he had tested positive. And so I work at the HEB that's near my parents' house, which is also why I only kind of work on Sundays, which is in Spring. And so that's about, 30 miles away. And so I was telling them, not telling them, but I told one person, I was like, I'm kind of stressed right now because, of course I was having a difficult day, but this made it even worse. But I told them, my brother just texted me and he just tested positive for coronavirus. And that was toward the end of my shift. I left, and the next few days people were just avoiding me. Instead of consoling me, that person that I told, they went ahead and told everybody in the store. They told my service leaders, who called me and asked me to quarantine for 14 days, even though I didn't have close contact with my brother. There was kind of no, I want to say, compassion for those people that were directly affected by that. It's something that's scary and looming over everybody's heads. And so, customers would be treating us like the virus. Sometimes other employees would be really wary and stuff like that. And so once there was a bus going by. So once I had told them and I came back to work, everybody was making a beeline away from me. Nobody was really talking to me. Nobody was asking me if I was okay. Nobody was asking if my family was okay. I would text my friends and they wouldn't really know what to say. They would just kind of be like, oh, that sucks. and that's it. Nobody really showing any like empathy or sympathy, whichever one is correct there. And it was that in and of itself made it feel like really isolating and really difficult to be vulnerable, to be able to share with others what I was going through. I'm a huge proponent for being vulnerable, so that way you can find the support that you need from your communities and the people around you. And so I tried to do that, but when I was doing that, everybody, I guess, was like too scared or too worried about their own situation to take into account the people that were actively, dealing with direct cases of coronavirus. So that was really unfortunate. It made me feel really alone and isolated. Kind of like hindered my schoolwork and my ability to like feel motivated and productive. But after that, had my therapy sessions and was just trying to focus on like being okay. I had stopped working for a few weeks just so I didn't have to be there and constantly be berated by customers on top of like, some of the things that I was facing. But yeah, after that, everybody just acted like nothing happened. Like they didn't hear anything. Nobody asked me for updates, nothing, so.
Did you have to experience like losses in salary, like your payment?
No, so for like the time that I had to quarantine.
Yeah.
No, I think I wasn't planning on working those days anyway. So I was okay. And the time that I took off afterwards, I had actually given up my shift. I don't think that they were going to pay me anyway, but no, I didn't. If anything, HEB has been really great about hazard pay. And they have been paying like an extra $2. They've been paying an extra $2 raise for people that are making over $13.50. And for people making anything less than $13.50, raising their pay up to $13.50 an hour, which is really great. They have been hiring like temporary workers. So that helps people who have, recently lost their jobs or been unemployed. And they have been having the pay since March, and they've extended it all the way until like late June. So they've continuously extended it. I know at Kroger, they're not really doing the same thing. I think they have actually accidentally paid people in excess and are expecting their employees to pay that back, which I think is kind of messed up, especially because they have profited so much from all of this happening. They can afford to take care of their employees, especially when they do pay them so little compared to HEB. I know USPS hasn't been doing hazard pay. I've been trying to not support Amazon because I know that they haven't really been taking care of their employees during this time, especially in the Houston warehouse. So like the one less package, I know it won't make like a huge difference, but if there are individuals that are deterring their purchase of one package, at least that will do something and will be one less package for them to process and to bring to my home. But yeah, no, I think in terms of my salary, I've been okay. I'm still receiving my stipend for the internship that I'm doing. Thankfully, I am so grateful to still have an internship after there have been so many students who have lost theirs and their opportunity to feel like having a productive and meaningful summer experience. But in terms of like my financial like stability from this, I have been doing okay. I've been doing great.
Yeah, what have you been most during the quarantine?
What have I been doing most?
Missing most.
Missing most. I think what I've been missing most is eating out. I love eating out. I think Houston is such a great city. I know that not a lot of Rice students get to experience anything outside of the hedges, even though like Rice lauds itself for being in like such a really huge city with like a lot of diverse communities. I feel like because of the way that Rice is set up with their on-campus housing, the residential colleges. Not a lot of students really emphasize the fact that you can feel more integrated and learn more about your city. And so I really do miss eating out, but like Bel Air, I miss eating dim sum. I miss eating I miss eating Korean barbecue and all of those like communal restaurants. I am like a huge foodie, and so being able to like sit down, experience the service and the food outside of like your dining room is now huge. Well, I think for me it's always been like a luxury, but now it's like an even greater commodity to be able to go somewhere and to enjoy your food and not be in your house. So I think that's the part that I miss the most. Of course, seeing friends is something too. I'm a huge extrovert, and I feel like I get a lot of my energy from being able to talk to people. So in some ways it's felt isolating, but at the same time, we do have access to technology. So I just try to force myself to, call them on the phone, something like that, text them, send them a funny video when I think of them. And that has made me feel like a little bit social. I also get to see my dog. I miss my dog, but I didn't really see him before quarantine anyway. So
Yeah, it brought us a lot closer to our pets as well.
yeah. I think some people's pets, if anything, have made them less productive at work. I see the funny videos of the cats trying to go on like the owner's keyboards and stuff like that. So
yeah, that's funny. Do you have anything else to add?
No, well, I guess I can add something. A lot of the students that are doing the Leadership Rice mentorship experience through the CCL is where I got my internship. A lot of the students in that program are actually doing their projects over like how the coronavirus has affected like different sectors of like society, the government, like politics. I am personally doing I think Lucas and V are doing our project somewhere related to health and science literacy in light of COVID-19, looking at like the different sources of information from like places with authority in influencing the public's like scientific and health literacy about like coronavirus and like overall. And so I think maybe those projects and reaching out to those students, because those should be done by the end of I think July or early August. I think that's when they're due, but they're doing posters, and I think that maybe some students would like be interested in looking at those, or the experiences of being able to like kind of delve into those things would be something of interest to you maybe.
Oh yeah, we can definitely talk about that more. Can you share a little bit more about your identity as an Asian American, or just your heritage in general has impacted you and made you experience the pandemic differently?
Yeah, so I am from, well, I'm from New York. I wasn't born in America, but my heritage is specifically like Filipino. And I think in Eastern countries, it is a great luxury to have like a more Asian American and Filipino specifically has given me a lot of insight, especially culturally, to take care of my community and have a greater civic responsibility, because Eastern countries specifically have really great collectivist societies, as opposed to Western societies where it's heavily individualistic. And I think because I'm Asian American, and also, no, just because I'm Asian American, I think that it gives me a really great opportunity to balance out those types of cultures and have a really great mix of individualistic tendencies, being able to take care of myself when I need to and be selfish about my mental health and my needs during this time, but also collectivist in that when I go out and when I need to, or when I have the ability to give to others, whether it be being able to shop for them, being able to, wear masks, make masks for them, talk to people who need it. I think that having those cultural boundaries are really great.
Yeah, so that's all of my questions so far. Well, thank you so much for your time in joining us into and speaking about your personal experiences.
Yeah, of course.